Guys for the late start. You guys get to see me fuddling up here. Nothing like doing a talk live. Uh, but I'd like to talk to everybody about getting started in radio direction finding. It's a primer. This is entry level stuff. But I'm going to talk to you about what it takes to get going in the hobby. We also know it as fox hunting. And my intent here is just give you the very basics of what it takes to successfully radio direction find, maybe a couple of tips, tricks, and also the why we do it. Before we get going, about me, I'm Nate, N8MOR, reboot kid, depending on if you met me at DC-14 or not. I've been in the radio operator for a bit over 6 years now. I remember doing this shenanigans at the Riv, so it's been a minute. And I'm amazed by this conference every year, and even today. So it's a fantastic group of people. This is just my personal advice, my personal thoughts. This does not represent anything. I give all these disclaimers whenever I go. This is not me giving you professional advice. This is just Nate talking to you. So anyways, what is radio direction finding? It's using radio waves to determine the location of a radio source. When we're starting with this, we just assume radio waves propagate in a direct line. That's not true, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to assume radio waves propagate in roughly a straight line from the transmitting antenna. The more lines from that we can observe, the more likely we can locate. So we use directional waves to find a line. I'm using, this is my line. And if we come over here and we establish another line, where those 2 points meet in space helps us identify where that location is. We're in a very RF noisy environment. There's a lot of buildings around it. It reflects on us. So you can't just go, okay, I'm walking, because I might be walking towards that antenna right there, which is not what I'm seeking, and it might be somebody has a fox in their pocket, which is happening. So the more of those lines you get, you can start to build a better triangulation map. I got started into geocaching, which is why I have the geocaching logo up there. I learned about it many years ago, and so when people ask me what is radio direction finding and what is it, I say it's like geocaching, except instead of using multi-million-dollar satellites, you're using $50 radios, chunks of PVC. It's the exact same concepts. It's the exact same driving force. And of course, whenever I say that, I'm like, okay, well, why does geocaching with ham radio matter, right? Why do we do this? And my answer is it varies, right? There's all kinds of different reasons why you do it. Sometimes you need to find a down skier. The ski patrols actually do require people that do backcountry skiing in certain areas to carry transponders. When they go down or they drop into an avalanche, they pull their transponder, and now you have to go find them. And that operates on 437 kilohertz. Don't quote me on that number. I have it later on. But sometimes it's finding the source of interference. So we're radio nerds. Sometimes we have to figure out what the heck that strong signal is it's coming from. Sometimes it's somebody keying up a repeater and just holding it, and you want to find out where they are. They don't even know. They've got their radio tucked in their backpack and the button's held down, and so nobody else can use the repeater. So there's a bunch of reasons why you can do it. Officially, if you do the digging, it's used for things like navigation, search and rescue, tracking of endangered animals. And if we walk over here, that's a 172 megahertz transmitter. We work in the 145 range as ham radios, and that one actually came off of a lion they were tracking. Idiots like me using these tape measure Yagis, you should recognize this piece of pipe from maybe, just kind of. And so, yeah, so there's reasons why we do it. And then there's an interesting situation. The first time I went out to do this hobby, I was at a park, which is not too far from an airport. And I'm out there working it, and someone handed me a device that they use to track down black boxes from airplanes. So apparently when student pilots are learning to fly and they have a tendency of landing their Cessnas pretty rough, it can actually trigger their the black box, and they'll go. They don't think anything of it because it's silent to the pilot. They park their plane in their little hangar, and they go on about their day, and it's driving ATC absolutely up the wall because all they're hearing is dee 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 as it's trying to do it. So someone handed me one of these things. This is the tools that they use. They come in different colors. They're blue, and this is what we call a fox sniffer now. So takes in a standard antenna connection, and it gives you an audible signal strength meter. So it's a lot easier. You're not having to use your radio and wander it around. But yeah, fox sniffers are things. Apparently airports do use them. It cracked me up. I thought I was in trouble with the FAA. Yeah, it was. I still have this mental image of this guy, this frustrated dude at a rural airport without any understanding of radio waves, going and having to check every single hang. Is your black box broken? No. Is your black box broken? Like, poor guy, right? So radio direction finding, it has actual real world applications, whether it's tracking animals, finding plane black boxes, down skiers, stuff like that. When we do this, we're going to build skills. We're going to help ourselves better understand how to navigate the area we're in, right? If you're having to pay attention to the DEF CON Fox Radio Hunt contest that might be happening right now, all weekend, you're going to actually learn better how the area you're working in is laid out because you're thinking about these things. You're going to learn about weak signal locating. So sometimes those signals are quieter, and so you need a much more narrow signal detection to try and hone in on it. And you're going to learn about RF theory. So if you look around, all these lights, everything is emitting RF energy. So is our cell phones in our pockets. This is a very RF noisy environment. And so when you're trying to do these things, you can actually decide, I want to bounce a signal off of the surface of this. There's a little bit of silver coating to it. So I can bounce a signal off of it and get it around things. And as a Fox master, someone's trying to do it, trying to hide the transmitters, I take those things into account to mess with people and make it a lot more harder. There are people that have gone walking up to a piece of mirrored glass that happens to be silvered mirrored, thinking that they're getting the Fox. It's just hilarious. So when we're talking about navigation, of course, that makes sense. You have to hit those two lines that are pointed on a map. Multiple lines may make it easier. But it helps you figure out how all of this works. So understanding how those signals bounce, if you're doing your triangulation, and I say, I've got one going this way, and then I come over here, and it's going this way, well, that tells me something. And your first instinct as a fox hunter is, well, that doesn't make any sense. Until you realize you're getting reflection, it's actually that way. Right? And so as you're working through your radio direction hobby, thinking about things, just because I find it along this line, that doesn't mean anything other than it's on this ray, and that ray goes very far. You're going to need some equipment. I know someone's back there like, hey, this kind of sounds kind of cool. What do I need to get into it? And really not much. I've done it with an RTL SDR and chunks of cut-up tape measure. Some people do it with something we call body fading. So they'll have a simple handheld radio. I have it like this. And what you're doing is you're using your body to block the signal. And I'm used to holding it upside down because I like looking at the signal strength meter like this. There's no reason why it can't be like this. It's just a lot harder to read it. And as evidenced by my glasses, my eyesight ain't that great. So I hold it upside down so I can see it. It doesn't matter. The radio waves don't care if it's upside down or right side up. But use your body to block it. And so just like the directional antenna we're talking about when I was using my length of PVC is build purposes, you use your body. Okay, well, it's stronger like this and weaker like this. That means it's in that rough direction. And so just like before, we step into another location, we repeat the process, and if we get enough points, we can actually triangulate it. I had a 6-year-old borrow a Baofeng at a convention and she was able to find it just using body fading. So it is absolutely possible to use body fading. I will tell you that having the energy of a 6-year-old probably helped with that, because there was a lot of running around for this young lady. But so those are things. And I touched on it. You can use something like this. To me, it's an audible direction finder because it makes a sound. I don't have an antenna on it, so I'm not going to do it. But we have a fox hunt booth downstairs. You can come and learn more about it later. But so you can use that. And then, of course, you can get really fancy. And that right there is basically a Doppler system for radio. I know people that do driving fox hunts where you're trying to locate a 1-watt transmitter across the entire San Francisco Bay Area. It can be, I've seen them drive. It was sitting at the little park at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they were picking up the signal for it from South Fremont. So 55 miles as the crow flies, give or take. A 1-watt signal using that. But then sometimes you'll get to a situation where you're getting a really strong signal, where as I get closer and closer and closer and closer, it gets louder and louder. And you can't tell after a while, am I dealing with a louder signal? And I'm still trying to do it, but I'm getting signals here, here, here. It's bouncing. That's where these things come in. And these are signal attenuators. And what they do is they just drop that level down. So when you're getting too much signal because someone has a fox is putting out a lot of power, or it's a black box that's putting out a lot of power, you attenuate the signal down to make it a lot more manageable and doesn't overload the front end. This is where it was supposed to have a YouTube video of what it takes to actually build them. And we don't have that right now. So, the QR codes. These are the instructions. And there's a video. And because there's not enough time for me to sit up here and solder one, I will solder one downstairs in the contest space later today. And anybody that wants to come down and see what it takes. You actually use length PVC pipe. You start with one element here. That is your director element. It comes off left and right. Your driven elements are 17 and 5/8 inch, don't quote me on that exact number, further down, and that acts as a dipole antenna. And then you have a reflector that's a little bit longer, and so any signal that comes in this way gets directed to your antennas, and when it comes out, it gets reflected back. It makes a lot more sense once you can actually see one. Unfortunately, YouTube's not playing nice for us right now. But there is, like I said, that is a build video. I did it on my dining room table with this piece of PVC pipe. It takes about 5 minutes when you're not trying to talk about it. It took me about 20 minutes to describe to people what I was doing as I was going step by step. So it's not a lengthy process. There are 3D printed parts, cut up tape measures, and a hairpin that you solder together. It's 5 screws. It's not significantly challenging. But okay, so just assume with me that we've actually gone through all of these pieces, right? I want to give you some tips. When I talk about body fading, it is actually very effective, especially in large volume spaces with RF radiation, or RF reflections rather, not radiation. So everything in here in the building being made of metal makes it very hard. Body fading actually takes that out of the equation for you. And so you are now using your body to just block that stuff from getting to the antenna. So it gets you a rough idea. The other challenge I see people do is they don't actually triangulate properly. They'll do one of these, they'll go over there, they'll do another one, and then they're like, okay, it's got to be over there. And they don't stop and take multiple measurements. And so they just go, I'm going to start marching, and I'm not getting in your face, sir, I promise. And they get target fixated, right? And so they just, I'm pointing this along that path, I still hear that path, and what they're missing is if you just very slowly walk it back and forth like you're working a metal detector, you'll hear the rise and the fall as you're going. So, and the rise and the fall helps you get a better understanding and keeps you on point. The people that just get a point, run for it, it's just frustrating to them. The people that take their time, they walk slowly, and they pan around, are much more successful. So don't just get a bead on it and go. Get multiple beads, triangulate it, and as you're walking from that third location, be gentle, be sweeping around it. As you get closer, I point to the attenuators, what you deal with when there's a hard, heavy signal or something like that. You get closer, that's going to be a problem because that's going to overload your front end receiver. So anybody that's here understands the concepts of harmonics. So this is our primary wave coming along like this. But that's our third harmonic. And so if you go to, if you're for standard fox hunting, if you go to 439, 785, I will publish these, by the way, so I don't ask you to memorize them. If you go to 439, 785, you're going to be on the third harmonic. And so the signal as it hits your radio is going to be much less released. You don't need to actually have an attenuator. You're taking advantage of the reality of how physics works, and you're lowering that by listening to something that's a weaker signal, right? So there's the second and there's the fourth, and you can continue to get closer and closer. Some radios will support the 293 and 586. Some won't, but I know that every 2 meter, 70 centimeter radio, which is mostly what people carry these days, will support the third harmonic. And then the other thing is, just like back to that geocaching stuff. Anybody ever geocached and had the thing just be sitting out there and they open the middle of the table and makes it nice and easy to find? It's never that way. It is never that way. They're hidden. And so, I'm going to, here at DEF CON, there are people that have foxes and they're sitting in their pockets. You'll never see it. There are people that are just walking around. There might be one that is behind locks you have to get through. It is a fun hobby, but it does actually make you work for it. And so, yeah, it's fun. It's a useful life skill. I have used it to help now locate a black box. The guy was very understanding when he shared me. So it is a useful skill. Make good friends with your people at the SEC, by the way. But have fun with it, and it's an interesting part of amateur radio hobby. It's one that not a lot of folks do, but it is one that gets you out there and walking and exploring the world. Anybody got any questions? All right. Thank you for your time, y'all.